The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
Wrestling to the Max, Monday Night Raw, review.
Welcome, everybody, to the Wrestling to the Max Raw review for August 7th, 2017. And, of course, we are brought to you by W2Mnet.com as well as 411mania.com. And, hey, if you love everything over here at the W2M Network, make sure you go subscribe at Wrestling to the Max or, actually, the W2M Network. And make sure you go ahead and rate, review, and subscribe at both because they'll help you out. Make sure you get all the content that we have to offer you guys. Also, don't forget YouTube. That's another great place to go subscribe. Do that now. I, of course, am Gary Vaughan. Along with me is your host tonight, Mr. Paul Leazar.
Hey-o.
So glad to have you back, Paul. Of course, you know, it's definitely understandable. You need a vacation, you need a break, but I'm just happy to have you back, man.
You know, I'm happy to be back. You never realize how much you miss podcasting until you don't do it for a week. Like, man, I kind of want to talk about stuff.
Yeah. I feel you on that because, you know, as everybody listening knows, if you're a regular listener to all our review shows, you know I don't do SmackDown Live and I also don't do 205 Live unless I'm needed, which I'm happy to do them when I'm needed. But, of course, Paul and I let Sean and Harry Broadhurst take those shows because it kind of gives us all a little bit of a break. Everybody gets a chance to kind of chime in on the different shows. And sometimes after SmackDown Live, I'm like, oh, God, I just want to get on there and talk. But I'm like, you know what? I need to let those guys handle it. They're awesome at what they do. Mm-hmm. I'll talk about it later. So I get you, man. And, you know, of course, when my vacation comes, I'm going to be going up the wall. I just found out recently, Hell in a Cell is the pay-per-view I'll be missing because I'm going on vacation. So, yeah, it's second year in a row I'm missing a pay-per-view, but that's the way it works sometimes, man. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. I left during really the heart of G1 season, so now me and Sean are like 6-7 shows behind on covering that, so we got some work to do there. Yeah.
Yeah. This may be a fast forward through the G1 kind of thing, but that's okay. You guys will do an awesome job. Really looking forward to that stuff. But, you know, everybody's here to listen to us talk about Monday Night Raw, and I think this is a bang-up show for you to come back and talk about, Paul, so let's get into it.
Yeah, you know, you come back and you want to talk about something good, and they just they give you a lot of ho-hum on this one, in my opinion. But Raw opens with Miz TV. Miz comes out. He's talking down about Jason Jordan because he's all pissed off about what happened last week. He's got the Miztourage with him, of course. Kurt Angle shows up, says, you know what, Jason Jordan's not going to be here. He's going to face Curtis Axel later. And so tonight on Miz TV, you instead will have Brock Lesnar, who shows up, of course, with Mr. Paul Heyman. And Miz is, you know, he doesn't really waste any time, right? He kicks Paul Heyman's microphone down, and he just goes on a huge rant about how Brock's going to lose the championship at SummerSlam. He's not going to be in the WWE anymore, and it's all Paul Heyman's fault because he, you know, kept hyping it up and put him in the ring against these three monsters, for lack of a better term. And finally, Paul Heyman has enough and does the usual stuff and says, you know, Miz, you know, it's all about role playing, right? Like, you can be Roman Reigns and Bo can be Samoa Joe and you know what, Axel, you can be Braun Strowman, and Brock can just give you a preview right now, and he absolutely murders all of them. Easily. Your Intercontinental Champion, folks, just got decimated, so...
How do you feel about that?
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. How do?
Yeah, okay, so, you know, and I get that point of it, and that's probably why you may not be a big fan of this, and I could kind of see that. Outside of that, I will say I enjoyed most of this, though, because it started the show on something we kind of like. I'm a big fan of Miz. I like what he does. I think he's one of the best talkers that WWE has to offer overall.
Yeah.
I mean, super entertaining. A lot of times very believable. I have to say, I mean, a lot of times when Miz is talking about something, I'm almost like, maybe this is actually true,
Yeah.
even though it may not be, and you probably not. But I think that, he does his thing and did a great job on this episode of Raw. I think that was well done. And, of course, you can't fault Paul Heyman and all that. I think what we're getting at here, though, is that it isn't really good for the Intercontinental title for the guy that's holding it just to get decimated immediately and very so simply. But we're also talking about Brock Lesnar here, right? Mm-hmm. A guy that, it takes half an entire WWE roster to hold back in a brawl. A guy that has, decimated the entire announced team along with everybody that came at him before. So it's not an unbelievable guy for the Miz to get destroyed by. Now, if we're talking about, just some other guy coming in the ring, then maybe we have a big problem. But Brock Lesnar, he's kind of one of those I give a pass to. Of course it's going to happen. Just like Steve Austin used to get the passes back in the Attitude Era. Mm-hmm. Oh, it's facing Steve Austin. Well, duh, I don't care who it is. The owner of the company, they're all going to get beat down. So I really didn't think this was too bad. Sure, it's not great for the Miztourage, but it also is going to gain that heat between Kurt Angle and the Miztourage, because they're, of course, never going to talk to Brock Lesnar again. They're going to be terrified of him. But who they're going to be even more pissed off against is Kurt Angle, because the whole thing started out by, Miz just wanting Jason Jordan. And here we go with Kurt Angle kind of finding ways to get his son in better situations. And once again, he does it by getting rid of his son's problem.
Right. Right, and that's the big deal here, and certainly you could, watching Brock kill people is always fun, right? Who doesn't love watching him just chunk people around all day? That's half the reason why I think he's still here, and why I think a lot of the crowd just still loves the guy, but it really sucks that Miz couldn't have just, bailed or something and headed for the hills while the Miztourage took the beating for him and all that fun stuff. But I get what they're going for. It's just that the only slight really is that, your Intercontinental Champion just looks like a big old bag of poop right now. So
yeah, but see, not everybody can be like Naito, right?
That's true. That's true.
So, you're right. The Miz doesn't come out of this looking good, but this will be something we'll forget. I full-heartedly believe that, down the line, casual fans are going to forget that even happened because they're so focused on Jason Jordan and the Miz. And I'm hoping that overshadows all this, at least. That's my hope, too. I think I'm being a little bit like Vince McMahon tonight. That's just sick. But I'm going to pretend like their thought process is, we'll all forget.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, never. It could happen, right? Obviously, you get thrown so much content weekly that it's kind of easy to forget stuff. So, later on in the evening, we find out Curtis Axel isn't clear to compete tonight against Jason Jordan. So Kurt Angle very quickly runs into some random guy in the back, asks him his name, which is apparently good enough, and tosses him in a match against Jason Jordan to get him squashed. So, not a whole lot happening here. The crowd, however, is the interesting part here, because they kind of crapped on Jordan some.
Yeah, you're right. In this crowd, I got to say, pretty darn hot. They were really stoked about being in Monday Night Raw, which is a lot of fun. And I think that's what kind of put me in a good mood. Maybe this show wasn't exactly the best show in the world, but I think this crowd really helped it. I think without that crowd, if you put this crowd in a different place, we may be really depressed. But, I think that helped this match for sure. And, of course, they didn't really appreciate Jason Jordan. And I kind of like that. This is a squash match, of course, and it's made to get Jason Jordan in a better light. But I love all those little things I kind of noticed. He's kind of doing the Kurt Angle spin in the ring, right? Mm-hmm. Holding the hands out, doing all that. So it's a clear picture of where we're going with this, about Kurt Angle protecting his son and giving his son opportunities no one else is really going to get. So I'm enjoying it. I don't know about you, Paul. At first, I was very leery of this. But I can kind of see myself kind of understanding and getting into Jason Jordan being that heel.
Mm-hmm. I think the intrigue in all of this was what always interested me the most about how exactly they're going to try to present Jason Jordan, because Kurt Angle was really great no matter what he was doing, right? Face, heel, Olympic wrestling machine, a parody essentially of himself at times, or just, being that goofball in the room. And I don't know if Jason Jordan has all those qualities, but if you can work both sides of the fence, I think that's, obviously speaks very highly to how talented you are at wrestling. But in all of this, if he comes out of this working as a heel, which I don't think is what they're after, but if that's what they get, You know, it's not like they don't have a cavalcade of faces. You know, they couldn't throw them up against like Seth Rollins, Dean Ambrose, list goes on, who are already so well presented and the fans love, that suddenly have this WWE product guy in a fabricated story. Like, it's just, I think it's ready-made money almost.
Yeah, and I could see that too. I really can. I love the, fact that this is a guy that we're kind of getting that, has a little bit of freshness to him, right? He's not one of these guys we've seen before. He's also not the cookie-cutter brawler.
Right.
He's more of that Olympic style, that grappling style. So he's a different heel than some of these other guys on the roster. And, I think that's going to put him in a different echelon. And also for the fact that you add in Kurt Angle and all that stuff, I think it does help him. And those other matchups will be something that's new and feel new compared to like, we've seen this before, just different face, So I'm okay with that. And I really do look forward to seeing if they get this thing going with even more momentum with Kurt Angle and, Jordan. I think it has some legs, but I'm still going to wait, man, because, I really could see down the line them doing a few stupid things and derailing this whole process.
It's WWE. There's going to be some stupid things.
Yeah, I know, and that's what I'm scared of, man.
Maybe what we shouldn't have been scared of was this main event as Braun Strowman and Roman Reigns go one-on-one in a last man standing match. A little north of 20 minutes. Very, very good. I think you knew what you were going to get from these guys was going to be some quality stuff. Big hits going through. The ending, of course, is what we're here to talk about. Samoa Joe comes out. He ends up beating up both guys. He chokes out Reigns, stands tall as Reigns gets counted down, leading to Braun to stand up and get to his feet and win. Joe looks pissed off as all heck about Braun standing up, which was great. Little bits of storytelling here. I thought this was a really good piece of business all the way around. Joe looks strong, Braun looks strong, and the crowd's going to eat up Roman getting his butt handed to him anytime. So I think this was a win-win.
Oh, yeah. This is one of those storylines or feuds, whatever you want to call it, that has been, I think, money. It really has. I feel like it's been one of the best things that they produced. And it's because of the big names, but it's also because that these guys are so violent and they are so good at what they're doing right now that you just get behind it and you want to watch every minute of these matches. Sure, it's a lot of brawling. Sure, honestly, a lot of the same things every week, right? There really hasn't been a ton of new move sets or anything that's been taking place within this feud, but you're getting that high energy, that power, everything that you kind of like watching. You talked about Brock Lesnar throwing people around. I never get tired of watching Braun Strowman throw Roman Reigns in the ring or over the barricade or into the barricade. It's just so much fun. I love watching Samoa Joe, and Roman Reigns is doing a good job himself. So I think overall, what you're getting week in and week out with this is very positive. They didn't shy away from that tonight. I think you do have Samoa Joe, a guy not even involved in the last 10-man standing match, looking just as good as the guys that were actually involved in the match. So, it makes me very happy. It sends a positive message to me for SummerSlam, and that's a very, very good deal. If I was going to knock anything, and maybe this is just me being a little bit, nitpicky, at the very end where you have Braun Strowman stand up at 9, I really felt like he should have sold more and had a harder time getting up and started getting up around 6. And I know they wanted to sell the whole, oh no, no one's going to get up. But until he's on his feet, he doesn't win. And you could have sold that he wasn't going to be able to stand up. You could have had Michael Cole say, he can't do it. He can't stand up. He's not going to make it, guys. He may be on his knees, but he can't stand up. And at 9, he just kneels and then stands. And very slowly, like he can barely move, because he just went a little too fast. I'm sorry. I just thought he got up too fast. It looked like he was all of a sudden energized, and then he falls on the ring. I'm like, come on. Now, that's nitpicky, I know, but I wish they'd have done a better job selling that for me.
Yeah, that didn't really bother me all that much, just because we're talking about the same guy who walked away from attempted manslaughter. So, yeah,
Yeah. I guess you got a point there, but I don't know. I just There's a few things that I wish that would change, and that's when I'm like, you have Roman Reigns, he's supposed to be knocked out cold by that, the clutch, and then all of a sudden at 10, you start seeing him move around, and I'm like, dude, come on, just lay there.
Yeah. It's selling it is always something to nitpick on, especially I think when it comes to Braun, who despite how well he's booked, he's not. He is what he is, right? And selling, I don't think is ever going to be his strong suit for a long time. Because it took Big Show and Kane and even Undertaker to a certain degree a while to learn, I think, how to sell correctly. So I think
you're right. Yeah, you're exactly right. And and I give Braun Strowman this criticism, but I also forget that this guy has not been in the wrestling business all that long. And we're not a guy. This is not a guy that was on the Indies for 5 years and then got in here. This is his training ground, and so there you go.
Right. I guess we should probably go ahead and talk about the other elephant in the room, and that's Bayley, who gets a promo. It's announced that she's injured her shoulder. She will not be able to wrestle Alexa Bliss for the championship at SummerSlam, so she's out. To sort of replace her, they're going to do 2 triple threat matches across the coming weeks on Raw, and the winners of those 2 matches will face off one-on-one to determine who will face Alexa Bliss. Yeah, that's right. So Bayley gets a big promo, and it doesn't, she thinks it's going to be Sasha to face Alexa at SummerSlam, which would make the most sense, obviously. And I don't know, the crowd just doesn't really ever seem into what she had to say, and they really could have cared less, I think, when Sasha came out. However, Emma, on the other hand, who's in the triple threat tonight against Sasha and Alicia Fox, gets a pretty loud reaction, which, people, I think, might be getting behind the idea of maybe you should give her a chance, just because, I think what she can do in the ring, and while she's really yet to, I think, prove it from a heel character standpoint, what she can bring as a face, so I would like to see this. The match, however, isn't all that great. It has some nice moments here and there, but it's ultimately, I think, too rushed to really dig into, and you see a lot of mistakes, particularly from Miss Fox. But Sasha does end up winning after she gets Emma in the bank statement, makes her tap out.
Yeah, and I want us to talk about what you were mentioning about the fact that the crowd kind of really was behind Emma. I think there's maybe a couple of reasons. I think one, people know that she's still a talented wrestler. It's just really never put on TV, and it just seems like the company never just wants to get behind her. So that's kind of the situation you're in with that. But the other thing is for the fact that we see in this match, that she is, able to do some positive things, and she's also, given an opportunity to look strong because there was a couple times there really she could have beat Sasha Banks. And so I think what the fans see and what they want to buy into, but not only that, you also have social media, which, people are on and they pay attention to. You've got Kurt Angle, on there, and you have her and him kind of going back and forth. And I saw recently that she asked him for more opportunities, and then he put a picture of her and Jordan together. So that was kind of funny, but that also gives people a reason to kind of maybe get behind her, see that someone's making fun of her. Hey, don't do that. We're going to get behind her. So maybe, we should have Bayley do that more often. I don't know, but I think that's the situation with that, and I think it's obvious Sasha Banks has to win this match. But I'm glad at least someone in at least one city understands that Emma deserves that opportunity, and I'm really, really happy with that. I'm on that train as well. Definitely think she needs more of an opportunity. So, and really quickly, I do want to say for the Bayley thing, wow, I didn't know Toronto hated her. I mean, they kind of just did not care. They were booing her too at the same time. It was almost like, hey, she's cutting this babyface promo, and then you would have thought that she was Nia Jax coming out there to talk.
Yeah. They didn't care, and it's hard to blame them, right? I mean, WWE I think's really dropped the ball on Bayley more often than not, even though it felt like they were trying to get her back on the right track after they brought her back, and maybe all this is a bit of a step back and maybe a welcome break from not having to see Bayley. They can go back to the drawing board and figure out what to do.
Yeah, let's reboot that for sure.
The other absolutely ginormous storyline on this is, of course, the Seth Rollins Dean Ambrose saga. Each of them face off against one of the tag team champions. So first up, Seth Rollins takes on Sheamus. about a 9-minute match or so. I think it's your kind of average fare here. Sheamus ends up winning after a Cesaro distraction. Rollins tries to attack afterwards, but he gets his butt handed to him, essentially. Ambrose, of course, however, has promised Seth that he's not here to help him out, and he refuses to come out, and he never does, even though the crowd is still cheering for him and all that good stuff. And we cut backstage after the ass beating, and Rollins is limping around backstage, and Ambrose, he told him, dude, don't attack them, obviously, a couple times, and Rollins is getting pissed off now that Dean essentially won't trust him. So, thoughts on all this up to this point?
Yeah, I mean, this makes sense, and you still feel that, angst from Ambrose over this whole, past, years with Seth Rollins and the fact that he got his heart broken by him and all that, and the Shield information that we kind of have on the background. You had a decent match here. It was okay. It was just a regular Raw match, I kind of feel like. And of course the heels get their thing going and find a way to win the match. So you have that anxiety and all that, stress and tension backstage after this, disappointing moment for Seth Rollins. I kind of liked it. I think it made sense. It all flowed well. And I think it did a good job flowing into the next thing where we'll talk about.
Yeah, and that is, of course, Dean Ambrose going one-on-one with Cesaro. 20 minutes. This, I thought, was really good. Cesaro looks phenomenal. However, Dean ends up getting the victory after a failed Sheamus distraction, and he gets a quick roll-up on Cesaro. And then the champions jump in afterwards to beat on Ambrose. Rollins, however, runs out this time to even the odds, trying to prove to Dean that, of course, he has changed, and they clear the ring. And Dean seems like he finally forgives him. He puts his fist out for the Shield salute, and Rollins just sort of walks away now. So, boy, I really don't know, Gary.
Okay, so, and this is the part that I think is the most interesting. And for the fact that you had, like you said, a pretty solid match here with Cesaro and Ambrose. It went a lot longer than I expected it to be honest with you. I didn't know that they were going to give him so much time, which I'm happy with. I love Cesaro. Everything about Cesaro makes me happy. But, in the ending, where, you have Ambrose pulling off the win because, it was almost going to be a repeat of that first match with, Sheamus and Rollins where Cesaro, cheated and got Sheamus the win. You thought that Sheamus was returning the favor. They turn the tables on you and Ambrose wins. So it's a 1-1, right? It's a tie here for these two teams. So kind of understand that. I've almost thought there was going to be a Cesaro and Sheamus sweep here. But outside of that storyline wise, I think what's cool about this is you do finally get Ambrose kind of going into this mode of, okay, I see, you're here to help me. You've always been here this past few weeks. Let's give this thing a shot. Let's just go ahead. Let's do it. I'm behind you now. And then with Rollins not doing it, with Rollins saying, you know what, F you, and walking out. I kind of like it. I was expecting, really honestly, for Rollins to stare at him and then put his fist out. It didn't happen. So it continues the story. This isn't boring, and it's not great. It's nothing over the top, Paul, but it's not boring. I kind of feel like it's a decent story that I kind of want to follow. I want to see what the whole reaction is behind scenes and all that after this. So it's something you can grasp onto. They get a lot of time on this episode of Raw. This is one of the featured things. I'm okay with it. The matches were good, but, I think overall it was decent.
Yeah, the thing I think I appreciate the most of all of this is that they're really going for long form storytelling here. Obviously, they're calling back on all the Shield stuff, which is great. We like the Rollins vitriol WWE has played up so big at this point that it feels natural for Dean to not want to trust him. And the really interesting part to me now is that Dean finally gave in, and Seth backing off just almost sort of proves Dean right. You can't really trust Rollins up to a point, and you can still sympathize with Rollins because he's been here this entire time trying to get Dean on his side again, and it hasn't worked, and he's had enough. So I mean, they're both baby faces, but you see both sides of the story. I think that's what's really interesting here.
Mm-hmm. No, you're exactly right, and I think that's what keeps us going. And if it is long term, like you're saying, I think this is important to slowly build it. And you're not going to finish it at SummerSlam, but maybe that's just the start. Maybe that's the beginning of something we're going to see in the future. And so I look forward to it. And I would even love eventually down the line to have Roman Reigns involved. Not to say he's going to be best friends with him again or something like that, but for him to kind of chime in and say something, or maybe even say, this is why I'm staying out of it.
Mm-hmm. Maybe so. I mean, that he does have a rather full plate right now with 3 giant men who want to hurt him very badly. So
yeah, I can get that too. So
you have the other triple threat, which I forgot to mention earlier. Nia Jax takes on Mickie James and Dana Brooke. Shockingly, Nia Jax wins. I don't know if we really need to talk about this all that much.
Yeah, you really don't. But of course, for the fact that it's kind of nice that Mickie James gets an opportunity here to be on TV. Mm-hmm. I always feel bad for her. A veteran, someone who really, honestly, I felt like they signed to help these ladies, and then you never see her. So I'm glad she made TV at least this week. Maybe the next 3-4 weeks away from here, we'll see her again, and we'll know. But, I mean, it is what it is. Nia Jax has got to win. Nia Jax looks strong and has an opportunity here against Sasha Banks. I think that's a really sweet deal, too, because that's a matchup that you can kind of get behind as well. Because Nia Jax is a force to be reckoned with, and I think that that's a good deal. It just wouldn't make any sense for anybody else, like you said.
Right. And then on the flip side of the maybe we don't need to talk about it so much, Akira Tozawa takes on Daivari. You have Neville come out and ruin a celebration pre-match as Tozawa is celebrating the fact that he's not hurt anymore. And he wants to sort of scout Tozawa during the match. Tozawa squashes Daivari in like 3 minutes.
Yeah, you're right. Good. It's just okay. The most entertaining thing out of this really wasn't per se the match. I just enjoyed hearing Titus O'Neil talk a little bit to Neville. So, yeah, I mean, overall, like you said, it's kind of forgettable, something you really don't have to care about. This is the episode of Raw where they made you not care if you watch 205 Live or not.
Right. Absolutely true. Because they didn't give you a whole lot to latch onto.
Yeah.
Something I thought might be rather interesting to talk about at length for a little while is this Finn Balor promo. He's talking about, he announces everybody in the building, of course, is the Balor Club. It gets a too sweet chant, which he more than happy to reciprocate to. And then he talks about how he beat up Bray Wyatt last week and is looking to keep bringing the fight to him so long as Bray is going to bring something. Wyatt magically shows up. Finn is, of course, one step ahead of him again already. He's sitting up on the top rope. They have a little bit of a brawl. Bray Wyatt, after he gets his tail kicked, disappears and then shows up on the screen saying he's ready to rip Finn down from the heavens and help the fans follow him down to... For me, I thought it was just really, they're really trying hard to make Finn Balor feel like he's the coolest dude in the room. And I think it kind of worked here.
Yeah, I mean, they did a good job for the fact that, really Bray Wyatt has been nothing. And in this feud, they're trying to make it something. And it works because of who Finn Balor is, and we all know he's the Demon. Mm-hmm. So that's the only thing I think really we latch on to. Now, Finn Balor is the coolest dude in the room. He plays the Fonz very well here. Yes. Because he just comes in with his leather jacket. Then here comes the bad guy into Ralph's restaurant, and he does a few things to kind of, hey, oh, I'm out of your way. Oh, no, here's a kick to the face. Oh, hey. And then it takes the bad guy to run outside and get in his car and then talk outside the window. And that's basically what Bray Wyatt does here. When he's getting beat down a little bit, he escapes and goes back to the camera where he's, on the Titantron and, feels safe on the Titantron. I think, it did make, Balor look really good here. I think this is something fans can get behind. And I'm not going to say that this is a feud that I'm just like, I'm dying to watch. Right. But I think things like this are good. And if you want to keep, I would say Bray Wyatt in that realm of he's mystical, he's kind of weird, and he's kind of creepy. This is the best way to do it, to have him kind of appear when he wants to, disappear when he wants to. And of course, you got a guy like Finn Balor who's trying to do his best to stay ahead of the game, and I think he's doing a good job. So I'm with you on this. I think this is Finn Balor's too cool for school on this one. I think he's doing a good job. I just don't know. Going forward, this is another one. I could see stupid things kind of falling into place, and I hope it doesn't.
Yeah, I'm not like super interested in the match or anything like that, but I'm very intrigued by the idea of this feud strictly being about reestablishing Finn, making him feel like he is the coolest man in the room every time he comes out, and trying to get the fans back behind him that way instead of relying on the Demon, which, don't get me wrong, is super awesome and great and really, really special to see when it happens. But man, just making Finn stand on his own first, I think, is priority number one for WWE right now, and I think it's working. This is a good first step, at least in my opinion. So,
and you're not wrong. And here's the thing: the way they had him move around in the ring and showing some of the kicks and the things that Finn Balor did here, it just shows us why we love Finn. And really, let's be honest, on his comeback, and everything he's done since he's been back has been okay.
Yeah.
But we have not seen the Finn Balor's, that move set that we love so much. Some of the amazing things that this guy can do has not been there. It has just not been present. And so I think that's why the fans have kind of yet to be really just super behind Finn Balor. But they kind of tease us with a little bit tonight. If they continue it on and they give us some of those great moves, some of those athletic things that Finn Balor does so well, I think it's going to make him care. It's going to get him even more excited about him. And then I think when SummerSlam comes around, we may see a whole buttload of that stuff, which I'm hoping. I hope it really happens because we need it and Finn Balor needs it.
I can't agree with you more. So we'll just move on because I think the last thing we really have left to talk about is the Enzo Amore Big Cass saga as Enzo comes out this week with the Big Show, talks about how they're kind of a bit of a dream team, talks about how Big Show KO'd Big Cass last week with that big punch and all that stuff, and then they talk about how Cass's chin is just, SAWFT soft. And this brings out the Good Brothers, Gallows and Anderson, who, of course, are not, they're quick to call them nerds, as they are these days, and Enzo decides to call them Dr. Evil and Mini-Me, which gets, I think, a pity laugh from the crowd, honestly.
Like two people.
Yeah. and then we get a tag match between the two because, WWE booking. And Enzo and Cass end up losing, as Enzo goes in for a desperation roll-up. However, he eats a big boot from Carl Anderson and gets pinned afterwards. Big Cass, of course, also came down for an interruption. And post-match ends up beating down Big Show after he kicks him in the face. Enzo hits big dive, and then sort of gets beat on a whole bunch, and then Big Show comes in to save the day, knocks Cass out again after Cass leads Enzo on a bit of a wild goose chase, I think, around the ring. And they're going to go at it one-on-one at SummerSlam because, it's that obvious.
Oh... I'm trying to think of something really nice to say about this.
It was a thing.
Yeah, it was a thing, and outside of all this, I think the most entertaining thing was Kaz asking for a match at SummerSlam with him and Big Show, and he wants Enzo Amore in a cage above the ring, like Jericho had to do.
Right.
Yeah, that may be the most interesting thing. I just don't care about this, and this is terrible because I used to be really behind, Enzo Amore and really loving everything he's doing. He's kind of fun, but this has just kind of dragged me through the mud. I just honestly could care less. And Big Show, he can't save it, and I don't hate Big Show. There's nothing against Big Show at all. He's doing his job. Really respect him. Doing great. It's just Enzo's kind of just overstayed his welcome on this whole thing, and I am not happy with it. It kind of bores me. I just don't care. I wish I could. I really do. This is the same thing week in and week out. Sure, they had the Good Brothers. Great. But it's the same old hat. So, I don't know, Paul. I wish I could be motivated. I wish I could care. But I'm not really caring. Big Show and Kaz, when they go and they fight at SummerSlam, I'm just going to feel like it's just another Raw match.
Yeah, and the feud hasn't really added that next elevation that is supposed to come after the first match, and it's still largely the same problem, right? Cass is ready to move on. Enzo, I think, honestly can't really let go and is happy to run Big Show's into Big Cass's face, and that just pisses Cass off. So that's been your feud since, before Great Balls of Fire. So I don't know. A lot of people out there still seem interested in seeing Enzo come out. He's great at getting the crowd hyped up, and that really might be what he's going to be kept around for, is almost like a hype man for people, which could work. I mean, we'll just have to see where they go after this whole cast thing is done, I think.
Yeah, and you're right on that. And I think Enzo Amore does a great job when he is hyping someone else up. And I think I would be more entertained by that. Talking about his own stuff and this whole feud. It's just, like I said, it's overstayed its welcome. That's why I'm so sour on Enzo Amore right now. Yeah, sure, he moves on, does another thing, and maybe, helps somebody else along. I'm good with that. I want to see that. I'll get excited. I'll have fun. I'll listen to those jokes no matter how bad they are. Let's just do it that way. Let's just kind of move on. And I'm hoping after SummerSlam they do.
Yeah, I completely agree. And then, of course, one quick thing here before I forget. Goldust does get a video package where he's talking about searching for his next hero, villain, or maybe even a leading lady. I'm all kinds of interested in Goldust right now, so more of this is just fine with me.
And here's the funny thing, Paul. I just got through talking about a guy that comes in and does the same thing week in and week out. And I'm sitting here saying, I'm so bored. I don't care. I hope he eats chicken over Roman Reigns' bag. That's I'm just get rid of him. And then here's a guy like Goldust, who's a veteran. He's been around forever. And I'm so intrigued. And I want to see what happens. And just by his words, and the things he said, like, I want to bring someone else. Who's my next star or starlet? I want to know. Like, I'm already fantasy booking. I'm already thinking of NXT superstars who could come up and do something with Goldust. I mean, I'm already sitting there. Who could it be? That's what's so fun, and I don't know why. Why do I care so much? But I think Goldust is just so charismatic. He just brings you in, and you just want to know what's happening next. And it's kind of funny because this is not new, but still it keeps you kind of holding on.
I completely agree. There's just a way, not only the way he's being presented, which is very much the old school way of him back in the early 90s. If you have the network, you can go see early episodes of Raw where he's walking around Universal Studios and Hollywood sets and stuff like that, sort of talking about how great he is and whatever else. But I just, there's something so intriguing about him, even though he's been around forever. And I just, we talk about how great Chris Jericho is at reinventing himself, and Goldust, even though he's playing an old hat, it feels fresh, and I love it. Can't get enough of it.
Are you as intrigued as I am on who's that person? Who is that we're going to see? That's what I can't wait. I don't know why, but I just can't wait to see who it is.
Yeah, I haven't a clue who it could be, but I at this point, it could be a paper bag. I'd be all right with that.
Oh, man. What if it's a mop?
Oh.
What if it's a mop? Mopsy comes back and becomes a starlet. Shout out to Saturn.
Saturn, yeah. Get well soon, right?
Yeah, we love them. So there you go.
Well, that does it for this episode of Raw. As far as talking about, we just got to put a number on it. Gary, what you going to give it?
I think for the most part, it had its good spots. Sure, I think the crowd had a big part of this. I think the crowd made some of these matches better than maybe they were at times. And then I think this also kind of made you kind of feel bad for people like Bayley by booing her and doing with her kind of that stuff. I think overall, they gave us some good continuations of some of these feuds. Some of them I just kind of drug their feet a little bit. I think I am going to give this Raw a 6. I don't think it was great. I don't think it was grand. I think average means that they did a little bit more. I just think there was a few things missing here. I don't know what it was, but there was something missing here that I just didn't feel great about it. The crowd did great. I would give it a 7 if they wouldn't have dragged their feet on a few things.
There's a lot of this show that just is sort of ho-hum. Here it is. The women's stuff was very rushed. I felt like Jason Jordan and Bayley getting dumped on, as interesting as it was. It's not like they were doing anything particularly interesting. I think the tag stuff in the main event is sort of what you're sticking around for. and that's really about it. And that might take up about half the show, so I'll give it a 5.
Fair enough. And no Woken Hardys on this episode.
Even though they're advertised. That's depressing.
Yeah, so who knows? Maybe they are, figuring things out with a Woken universe. I don't know.
Right. I love it so much. I really do. It's
I know you do. So, in your face, GFW.
Yeah,
anyway,
F that out.
Yeah. We'll talk more about Rebby Sky when we do a regular Wrestling to the Max episode this week. We'll be doing part 1 later tonight, actually, so go check that out. And, of course, we'll talk about that whole situation with the Woken Hardys and Rebby and some of the stuff going on still. It won't be a lot, but it's an interesting tidbit that you're going to want to hear us talk about, plus a lot more on that show. And make sure, hey, if you want to come find out all our great content and everything that we provide, go search us out on W2Mnet.com. And, of course, make sure you go subscribe Wrestling to the Max, rate, review there. Hey, and also the W2M Network. So both are great. Choose one of them. Choose both of them. I don't care. Just go ahead and go and give us 5 stars and let us know what you think about what we're doing here. We love all of you. Appreciate all the great feedback we get week in and week out. You guys are awesome. Thank you once again for joining us tonight. I am Gary Vaughan. He is Paul Leazar, and we'll catch you guys down the road.
Have a good one, everyone.
The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.